A corrupt thug slapped a 78-year-old widow straight in the face, knocking her to the floor in the middle of the crowded Silver Spur diner in Ely, Nevada. The entire room fell dead silent, every eye daring only to look down, no one brave enough to utter a word. He laughed loudly, arrogantly, like the little king of the town, believing his power and the fear he sowed would make everyone bow. But he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had no idea that the son this widow prayed for every night to be safe, a Hells Angels biker who had left the stormy roads behind, living quietly in a place where no one remembered his name. But in just a few minutes, the roar of his Harley engine would echo in front of the diner, bringing justice on two wheels. Ely, Nevada, a small town nestled in the middle of the Great Basin Desert, where Route 50 runs through like a lonely scar of America. Mornings here are so quiet you can hear the wind brushing past the rusty sign of the old general store, the crunch of snowflakes falling from rooftops, and the distant train whistle echoing from the Shell Creek Mountains. The young sunlight sparkles, scattering gold over the snow-capped mountains like a layer of cold honey. In the wooden house isolated on the edge of town, Martha Maggie Cole, 78 years old, silver hair tied neatly, gaunt hands, is performing her familiar morning ritual, brewing coffee in the old glass pot, turning on the radio for the weather report, then standing by the window frame looking out at the empty road. She has been a widow for nearly 20 years, her husband lost in a mining accident, and since then her world has shrunk to a radius of a few miles around the house. Ely is peaceful but lonely. People are used to not asking about each other, just nodding when they meet on the street. She doesn't complain. The silence of this town makes her feel safe, though sometimes in the long nights, she still hears the wind howling like a reminder that she is all alone. She has one son, Hawk Cole, her only child and the greatest pain of her life. Hawk was once the nightmare of her youth, the drifter young man with a leather jacket, tattoos, and the Hells Angels emblem on his chest. For many years, she no longer asked where he went, only knowing he was still wandering somewhere on the highways, where man and metal blend into a kind of freedom hard to name. Occasionally, a postcard sent back from Arizona, Oregon, or Montana, with just a few short lines, "Mom, I'm fine. The road's long but kind." It has been 3 years since the last one. She still keeps them all in a small wooden box, along with the letters he once wrote in scribbled handwriting, including the line she could never forget. "Sometimes the road is the only home left for men like me." Perhaps that's why every morning, when looking into the distance, she always imagines the sound of some Harley engine echoing from the horizon. The coffee has gone cold. She drapes a hand-knitted wool shawl over her shoulders, locks the door and steps down the wooden porch, her soft-soled shoes sinking slightly into the damp gravel. The road leading to downtown Ely is covered in mist, each house huddled as if asleep. She walks slowly, holding an old purse, past the tire shop, past the small post office, then turns onto the main street. At the corner is the Silver Spur Diner, an old eatery, with a neon sign flickering half-lit, where she stops every morning for a hot cup of coffee, and to feel like she still belongs to this world. The glass door reflects her small figure in a brown wool coat, inside warmth and the smell of baked goods spread. Maggie takes a deep breath, pushes the door open, unaware that this peaceful morning would be the start of the biggest storm of her life. The Silver Spur Diner sits in the heart of Ely, where mornings always begin with the smell of slightly burnt coffee and muffled country music from the old radio. The clock shows 9. The place packed. Miners sit next to long-haul truckers, local women chatting over buttered pancakes. Light from the windows floods the wooden floor, reflecting off the chrome counter and faded sugar dispensers. Maggie Cole sits at the table near the window, her small frame swallowed by the bustling scene. She opens the menu with trembling hands, though she knows every item by heart. Chloe Vance, the 22-year-old waitress, approaches with a friendly smile. "Morning, Miss Maggie." "The usual," she nods, replying softly. "Same as always, dear." Chloe sets down the coffee cup, steam gently spreading across the table. The old lady thanks her, blows lightly on the dark surface, the coffee scent mixing with baked goods and scattered laughter around. A normal morning, quiet, like every other. Then the atmosphere changes. The door bursts open hard, cold wind rushing in, making the bell above the frame jingle chaotically. 3 men enter, boots stomping heavily on the wooden floor. Leading is Cade Walker, 50 years old, burly, red-faced, half-shaved beard. He's a wealthy construction contractor, known for his hot temper and respected by the mayor. Anyone living in Ely knows Cade is not someone to mess with. He works for Richard Croft, an investor from Vegas trying to seize the entire Bassett Lake area to build a luxury resort called Silver Basin. Today he enters the Silver Spur, as if the whole town is his territory. Cade scans the room with his eyes, then stops at Maggie. A smile appears on his lips, slick and contemptuous. "Didn't know the city's got their grandmas buying up land here," he says loudly. Enough for everyone to hear. His two lackeys laugh noisily. Chloe freezes behind the counter, face paling. She secretly pulls out her phone, opens the camera, and hides it among the stack of menus, aiming the lens at Maggie. Cade walks slowly to the old lady's table, his boots thudding with each heavy step. "Heard you own that little spot by Bassett Lake," he says, voice drawn out. "Nice piece of land. My boss might have some use for it." Maggie looks up, eyes calm, trying to keep her voice steady. "The land's for my family, not for sale." He laughs, leans close to the table, breath heavy with last night's whiskey. "Lady, that patch of dirt is worth a fortune to the right people. Maybe you didn't hear me." The diner falls silent. Those eating stop, spoons hovering midway. Everyone knows Cade, and everyone knows not to interfere. He lowers his voice, but each word is still full of threat. "Croft doesn't like stubborn people. You should know your place." Maggie sets down the coffee cup, slowly replying, "My place is my home." The short, calm sentence makes the entire diner fall dead silent. Cade stares at her for a few seconds, then laughs harshly. "You think that biker son of yours can protect you?" he says louder, voice like thunder. "He's just another outlaw. The law's with us." A few people in the diner bow their heads, avoiding eye contact. Maggie feels her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The son's name he just mentioned, Hawk, like a scar that never healed. She had tried to forget his past, tried to hide those notorious wandering years. But now, in this crowded room, that name is thrown out like an insult. She breathes deeply, her pale blue eyes flashing with determination. "Maybe," she says softly, "but outlaws still know the meaning of loyalty." Cade freezes, for a moment as if not believing a tiny old lady dared say that. His face flushes red. Anger rises, making his hand tremble. "You watch your mouth, old lady," he hisses. He slams his hand hard on the table. The coffee cup tips over, hot liquid spilling across the table, dripping onto the floor. No one speaks. Chloe holds her breath, gripping the phone tightly. Cade steps back half a step, then suddenly swings his arm. The slap is strong and fast. Almost no one reacts in time. The dry crack echoes throughout the diner. Maggie reels back, hitting the chair, then falling to the floor, hand clutching her cheek, head spinning. The entire room goes dead silent. The country music still plays faintly on the radio, sounding like from another world. Chloe's mouth opens, tears welling, but she keeps recording. The diner owner, Don, starts to step forward, but is blocked by one of Cade's lackeys. "Stay out of it," he growls. Cade stands there, breathing heavily, eyes blazing with the thrill of power. "That's what happens when people forget who runs this town," he says, voice choked with anger. No one responds. A silent shame spreads, heavy like desert dust, clinging to everyone in the diner. Maggie lies still, breathing labored. She doesn't cry, doesn't speak, just tastes blood at the corner of her mouth. Chloe trembles, whispering softly, "Oh my God," then raises the phone higher, zooming in on the face of the man who just hit an old lady. Cade turns, glares at her, but before he can speak, another sound rises from the street, the Harley engine, deep and solid, echoing through the thick glass. A few customers glance outside. Through the fogged window, they see a shiny black Harley just pulled up in front of the diner. The bike stands upright, exhaust still smoking. The rider is tall, wearing a faded leather jacket, black helmet without visor. He turns off the engine, stands still for a moment, then removes the helmet. Midday light hits his tanned face and cold gray eyes. On the side of the jacket, the faded Hells Angels California logo. Cade looks out, hesitates briefly, then forces a smile. "Well, look who." He doesn't finish the sentence before the diner door bursts open. The bell jingles, cold wind rushes in, scattering some receipts on the counter. The man enters, not hurried, not saying a word. Leather boots thud lightly on the floor. Maggie lifts her head, her eyes meeting his. They don't need greetings. She recognizes that gait, those eyes. Hawk. He steps over, kneels down, helps his mother up, his calloused hand gently wrapping around her shoulders, lifting her steadily in the dead silent room. Maggie trembles, hand gripping her son's arm tightly, head still dizzy from the slap, but eyes calming again. Hawk says nothing, just bends down to pick up the fallen shawl from the floor, draping it over her shoulders. His leather jacket rustles with movement, the smell of wind, gasoline, and open road mixing into the air. No one in the diner dares speak, not even Cade Walker. He steps back half a step, his red face turning pale, mouth moving, as if to say something but throat choked. Chloe still stands behind the counter, hand clutching the recording phone. Other customers bow their heads, a few sneaking glances, then quickly looking away. Hawk still doesn't look at Cade. He just bows his head to speak softly to his mother, voice deep and calm. "You all right, Ma?" Maggie nods slightly. "I'm fine," she replies softly, but voice trembling. Hawk helps her back into the chair, pulls a handkerchief from his pocket, wipes the coffee spill and small blood drop at the edge of her lips. Every gesture is slow, controlled, but hiding an energy that makes the entire room feel suffocating. Cade swallows, tries to regain his voice. "Didn't mean to. She got in my face," he says, but sound hoarse, lacking confidence. Hawk turns his head, looks at him for the first time. His cold gray eyes make Cade shut up. In an instant, the confident power he once displayed in this town vanishes. Hawk stands straight, taller than him, leather shoulders gleaming faintly in the window light. "You hit a 78-year-old woman," he says slowly, voice low like an idling engine. "You call that being a man?" Cade doesn't answer. A siren sounds outside. Then the diner door bursts open. Sheriff Bill Harker appears with 2 deputies. His uniform is wrinkled, smelling of tobacco and cheap cologne mixed. Harker enters, eyes scanning, then stopping at Hawk. All right, what's going on here?" His voice rings out, pretending surprise. Cade breathes a sigh of relief like seeing a savior. "Sheriff, this woman," she started yelling, "spilled coffee." Harker raises a hand to stop him, one at a time. He looks at Maggie, then at Hawk, eyes narrowing as if recognizing something. "You're not from around here," Hawk replies, voice icy. "Used to be." Harker squints. "Name? Cole." Silence envelops when he hears that surname. In this town, anyone who's lived long knows Hawk Cole, the wayward son, the one who rode a Harley out of Ellie on a rainy night 15 years ago. "Well," Harker says, voice slow, "looks like you brought your kind of trouble back home." Hawk doesn't react, just turns to his mother. "We're done here." He helps her stand. Chloe shifts slightly, hides the phone in her apron. Harker blocks. "Now hold on. No one's leaving till I get the story." Cade jumps in, voice urgent. "She attacked me first. You saw it, Don." The diner owner stammers. "I just saw her sitting there." Cade glares. Don shuts up. Hawk says nothing, just stands straight looking at Harker. His eyes need no words, but enough to make the room's air heavy as lead. Finally he says, voice hoarse, clear, "This town forgot what respect means." Then he turns his back, takes his mother's hand. Maggie hesitates slightly, but her eyes full of trust. The mother and son walk out, each step slow. The door opens, bell jingles. Cold wind blows in, carrying coffee steam and the hot iron smell of the engine outside. Hawk guides his mother through the door, helps her into the old pickup truck parked at the curb. Cade steps to the window, watching, neck veins bulging. "You better stay gone," he shouts, but voice shaking like threatening himself. Hawk pauses in the street, turns his head to look back over his shoulder. His eyes meet Cade's through the foggy glass, not angry, just cold and empty, like a warning without words. Cade suddenly feels a chill down his spine, heart pounding wildly. As the pickup drives away, dust clouding the road, Chloe stops the video, quietly saves it to her phone. She knows what she just recorded will change this whole town. Inside the diner, Sheriff Harker turns to Cade, voice lowering. "You really shouldn't have done that, son." Cade smirks faintly, regaining aggression. "She's just a nobody, Sheriff. Let's not make a fuss." Harker looks at him, inhales smoke, eyes calculating. "That man," he says softly, "isn't nobody. He's a Cole, and he's got the look of someone who doesn't walk away from a fight." Cade snorts, forcing it. "He's one guy with a bike. We own this town." Harker doesn't reply, just looks out the window, where road dust still lingers. Out there, Hawk's truck has vanished, but the Harley engine still echoes somewhere among the gray mountains. In the silence, the sheriff realizes something has just changed. That afternoon, The yellow sun sets early behind the mountains, leaving a gray-gold light over the tin-roofed houses and old signs. Hawk takes his mother home, tells her to lock the door, then sits silently for hours on the porch steps, eyes toward distant Bassett Lake. The dirt road to the lake was once where he rode with friends in his youth, where he learned to hold the handlebars in the sand wind. Now that serene lake is the center of a storm the town pretends not to see. After the diner incident, rumors spread fast, but no one dares speak loudly. Hillary is small and poor, and in towns like this, power doesn't come from the law but from those who own it. Sheriff Bill Harker is the face of that power. Three-term sheriff, living in the biggest house in town, driving a new pickup every year, and never solving a case properly. People know Harker takes cuts from contractors, envelopes from Croft and Thorne, but no one dares touch him. He's the protector in uniform, polite enough to make people fear, ruthless enough to keep them silent. That evening, in a room in City Hall, Harker sits with Mayor Garrison Thorne and Richard Croft. Neon light casts on Croft's oily face, the middle-aged man with a toothy white smile and expensive suit that doesn't fit this town at all. On the table is the Bassett Lake map, spread out with red stakes marking future development area. Croft taps his pen lightly on the parcel labeled coal. "She's the last one holding out," he says. "Once we get that parcel, construction can start by spring." Thorne adjusts his tie, voice hoarse and tired. "And now her son's back. That's trouble we don't need." Harker exhales smoke, leans back in his chair. "He's a biker, probably just passing through. Give it a week, he'll be gone." Croft smirks. "You better hope so. I don't want headlines about some old widow claiming we're bullying her off her land." Harker stubs out the cigarette, replies in a cold voice. "There won't be headlines, not in my town." Thorne nods, though eyes flash worry. He knows Croft isn't just buying land. He's buying the soul of all Ely. Croft's money feeds the whole system, and this town sold itself long ago. On the other side, Hawk drives around town, uncovering stories people don't want to tell. He stops at an old classmate's bar, the repair shop, and hears broken whispers. One says the Lewis family once lived by the lake, but their house burned down last year, electrical fault. Another says the McGinnises disappeared after refusing to sell to Croft. No investigation. No one dares. Hawk goes to Bassett Lake at nightfall, stands on the cold shore where wind through the reeds sounds like metal screeching. He looks around, sees new private property, Silver Basin Development, signs, concrete stakes still streaked with fresh paint, piece by piece of land, house, person swallowed by that name. In the moonlight, Ely looks like a beast being carved up, silently enduring. Hawk picks up a driftwood piece by the shore, sees Lewis carved on it. He clenches his fist, eyes gleaming like steel. The next morning, he drives to City Hall. Through the window, he sees Croft talking to Thorne, Harker standing nearby, the three men laughing, coffee cups in hand, looking like old friends. Hawk realizes he's not facing one man, but the whole system. They are the roots and trunk of the same rotten tree. He returns to the Silver Spur diner, meets Chloe wiping the counter. She looks up worried. "I heard they're saying you threatened Cade." Hawk smiles faintly. "That's what they do. They turn truth inside out." Chloe hesitates, then pulls out her phone. "I still have the video," she says softly. "I made copies just in case." He looks at her, nods slightly. "Keep them safe. Don't trust anyone wearing a badge." She nods, eyes tearing up. Outside the window, Harker's patrol car drives by, lights flashing like a reminder. Every eye is watching. That night, as desert wind howls over the roof, Hawk sits alone in the garage, yellow light casting on his face. Beside him is the Harley, still dusted from the long road. He wipes it with a wet rag, slowly, as if clearing his mind. The bits of information he gathered pieced together into a complete picture. Croft bribing officials, Harker protecting opposing residents threatened, some vanishing without trace. Ely is no longer the place he grew up. It's been eroded from within. He looks toward the house where his mother sleeps, hand lightly clenching the key. The road outside is pitch black, but he knows he must soon enter it. In the thick darkness, only the wind and the faint metal sound as he turns the key, flips the Harley switch. The engine roars a deep, heavy growl, like a beast's breath. He mutters softly, enough for himself to hear. They built this town on fear. The engine revs higher, echoing the flickering lights from distant City Hall, and they've made a fortune from it. 2 days later, when the Ely sky was dull gray and low clouds covered the Shell Creek Range, Chloe Vance sat in her small rented room behind the Silver Spur diner, staring at the video on her phone. Her hands trembled as she rewound the moment Cade Walker slapped Maggie Cole, that dry crack still making her shudder though she had heard it dozens of times. She knew she was doing something dangerous, but anger had overtaken fear. After a few seconds of hesitation, she hit upload. The title was just 6 words: Old Woman Assaulted in Ely Diner. Below it she wrote a caption: Her name is Maggie Cole. She's 78. This is what happens when greed runs a town. The clip was less than a minute long, but just 2 hours later, tens of thousands of views flooded in. The first comments were shock, then outrage. One wrote, "That's someone's grandma." Another, "Find him." By afternoon, the video appeared on biker forums across America. A page with millions of members reposted it with the line, "Bully hits an old lady in Nevada. Her son's a Hell's Angel. Justice is coming." Hashtags #justice for Maggie and #ride for her began spreading across social media like fire in the wind. Veterans, long-haul truckers, and the biker community all shared it. Tattoo artists in Utah, veteran groups in Arizona, Harley riders in California, all started talking, making plans. Somewhere between Las Vegas and Reno, an old biker saw the video, quietly sent a message to a long contact list. The message was just 3 words: "For Maggie, ride." That night, in his garage, Hawk opened his phone, saw hundreds of notifications piling up. Names he once knew, once rode with on the highways, appeared one by one. Brothers from Arizona, Utah, California, even Texas. They didn't ask questions, didn't discuss, just sent one message: "Bro, we're riding." Hawk sat silent for a moment, looking at the glowing screen in the darkness, hearing the wind howling outside like distant engines. He knew he was no longer alone. Meanwhile, at the diner, Chloe was called to the office by owner Don. He was trembling, sweat on his forehead, speaking in gasps. "Chloe, you need to take that video down. The sheriff's been calling all morning. They say you're spreading lies." She looked straight at him, voice firm. "It's not a lie, it's the truth. Everyone saw it." Don shook his head, voice pleading. "You don't understand, kid. Cade works for Croft. Croft pays the mayor, and the mayor pays me. Take it down before they shut us down." Chloe stood up, grabbed her bag. "Then let them," she said, walking out. As the door closed, Don watched, eyes panicked. That evening, at the sheriff's office, Harker sat staring at the computer screen, face tense. The clip was playing on the local news site, with the headline, "Corruption in Ely. Sheriff accused of protecting local thug." Beside him, Cade paced restlessly, sweat beading on his forehead. "You said this would blow over," he yelled. "You said this would blow over," he yelled. Harker tossed the cigarette into the ashtray, voice growling each word. "I said it would if you kept your damn hands to yourself." He turned on the TV. National news already covering it. Outrage grows after viral diner assault in Nevada. A female anchor read, "The elderly victim, identified as 78-year-old Martha Cole, was reportedly struck by a local contractor with alleged ties to developer Richard Croft." The name Croft made both men fall silent. In Las Vegas, Richard Croft was sitting in his glass office, watching the same broadcast. His face changed color. "Get me Thorne," he said into the phone, voice cold. Meanwhile, in places farther away, engines began to roar. In Salt Lake City, 12 black-helmeted bikers prepared to hit the road. In Flagstaff, Arizona, a group of 30 fueled up, sticking "Ride for Maggie" labels on their tanks. In California, where the highway blurred in fog, a long line of Harleys left at dawn. Messages spread through forums, the video shared millions of times. An online paper wrote, "When justice sleeps, the road awakens." On the asphalt roads crossing the desert, the sound of hundreds of engines blended like distant thunder. Hawk stood on his porch, hearing that sound through the wind, though still hundreds of miles away. He felt the shift of something bigger than himself, a wave of brothers, a justice that needed no courtroom. Maggie stepped out, coffee cup in hand. "They're coming, aren't they?" she asked softly. Hawk looked west, where the crimson sunset cut the horizon. "Yeah," he replied. "They're coming." In the town of Ely, people started whispering. Everyone heard about the biker convoy heading in, some scared, some relieved. Stores closed early. Harker's deputies ordered to increase patrols, but everyone knew no one could stop what was coming. As night fell, Chloe received a text from an unknown number. "You did good, kid. Keep your head low. The road remembers." She looked out the window, saw headlights far away reflecting on the highway, points of light connecting like a moving fire. On the screen, the video views surpassed 5 million. The whole country now knew the name Ely, Nevada, and in the quiet darkness, the first engine sound echoed from afar, reverberating between the mountains. No one said it, but everyone understood. Tomorrow Ely would no longer be the same. The Ely sky was thick gray like ash, the air heavy with rain and metal. In the wooden building on the hill north of town, lights stayed on all night. The mayor's small meeting room, Garrison Thorne's, was thick with cigarette smoke, curtains drawn tight, only the yellowish light from the ceiling lamp casting down. Richard Croft sat at the head of the table, gray suit pressed, tie loosened, handsome face twisted with anger. In front of him was the laptop replaying the Silver Spur diner video, the slap, the gasps, the horrified looks of everyone, all looping obsessively. "It's everywhere," he said, voice ice cold. "We can't contain it anymore." The video's been mirrored, downloaded, reposted. It's on every biker page from here to Texas. Thorne sat opposite, back slightly hunched, sweat beading behind his shirt collar. He had once been ambitious, once believed Croft would turn Ely into a tourist destination, but now, looking into his eyes, he saw only a cornered beast. "We can issue a statement," Thorne said, voice shaking. "Say it's fake, staged." Croft slammed his hand on the table, spilling coffee. "Don't insult me, Garrison. The woman's real, the slap's real, and every idiot with a phone has seen it. We don't need statements, we need control." He turned to Harker, leaning against the wall, silently smoking. "You said you had this under control." Harker exhaled smoke, eyes drowsy. "I did, until your boy lost his temper." "He was your boy too," Croft growled. "You were supposed to keep him on a leash." Harker smirked, voice hoarse. "You want dogs, you pay for dogs. You paid for a man with a badge." The air was thick. Thorne interjected, trying to calm. "Gentlemen, we can still fix this. The video came from that waitress girl. What's her name? Chloe something. If we can get her to delete it. She already posted it. It's viral." Croft cut in. "But she's still here. Find her, take her phone, her laptop, whatever she's got. I don't care how." His eyes sharp as knives. Harker nodded, stubbed the cigarette into the overflowing ashtray. "Consider it done." Thorne swallowed dryly, glanced at Croft. "And the biker?" Croft smiled faintly, a smile like a cut on his face. "The biker is a problem. The kind of problem that spreads fear if you don't handle it fast." Harker asked, "You want him arrested?" "Arrested?" Croft repeated, emphasizing each syllable, then shook his head slowly. "No, arresting him makes him a headline. We make him disappear quietly. An accident. A bar fight. A hit and run. People forget." Thorne turned away, voice small. "He's her son. This will look bad." Croft looked at him like a stupid child. "It already looks bad, Garrison. We're way past bad. We're at survival." The door opened. A burly man in a black jacket entered. Deputy Ray Collins, Harker's most loyal lackey. He stood waiting, hat in hand. Harker signaled him to close the door, then said softly, "You got 2 jobs tonight. First, find the waitress. Make sure whatever she's got is gone. Second," he looked at Croft, then finished, "go pay Mr. Cole a visit. Let him know outsiders aren't welcome." Collins nodded, eyes cold, then turned out. When the door closed, Thorne rested his forehead, sighed. "If this goes wrong," Croft cut in, voice sharp as a blade. "It already went wrong, now we're cleaning up." He stood, straightened his tie, walked to the window. From here the entire small town of Ely could be seen below the hill, gray roofs, the main road like a thread, and far away the still Bassett Lake like a dark mirror. "You see that?" Croft said, voice low, almost whispering. "This town's been mine for 2 years. Every lot, every permit, every damn signature. No video changes that. No old woman changes that. And certainly not some washed-up biker." Behind him, Harker checked his watch, then stood. "You better hope so. Because that washed-up bikers has an army riding here, and I'm not paid enough to fight a war." Croft turned back, cold smile on his lips. "Then make sure there's no war to fight." He took the glass, drank it dry. Outside, thunder rumbled from afar, signaling an approaching storm. That night, in the dark alley behind the Silver Spur, Chloe was locking up when she heard footsteps. Before she could turn, a hand covered her mouth, pulling hard into the shadows. She struggled, heard a man's hoarse voice in her ear. "Where's the phone?" A hard blow to her side made her collapse. Light flashed from the alley entrance. Hawk's pickup turned in, headlights sweeping across. The man released her, ran into the night, vanishing in the alley. Hawk braked hard, ran over, helped Chloe up. She gasped, eyes full of fear. "They want the video," she said. Voice choked. Hawk looked around, saw only darkness and boot prints in the damp dirt. "Then keep it hidden," he said softly. "They're just getting started." On the other side of town, Deputy Collins stopped his car in front of Maggie's wooden house. Lights inside were off. Only Hawk's Harley parked on the porch. He lit a cigarette, took a drag, then stepped out, gripping a metal baton tightly. As he reached the steps, the yellow light inside flicked on. Hawk opened the door, light illuminating his calm face. "You looking for me?" he asked. Collins froze, cigarette falling from his lips. For a few seconds, the two men stared across the rainy porch. Then Hawk stepped forward. Not fast, not slow, just enough for his gaze to make the other back up. "Tell your boss," Hawk said, voice low, cold as steel. "I don't scare easy." Collins swallowed hard, returned to his car, started the engine and drove off. When the sound faded, Hawk watched, in his mind echoing Croft's phrase used to rule Illy, control through fear. But he knew something was changing. Tonight that very fear had begun to tremble. Dawn rose slowly over Illy, pale light sweeping across the frost-covered roofs. No one in town knew exactly when it started. Only that around after 5 in the morning, people heard the first sound, a deep engine echoing through the western mountains, followed by dozens more like spreading thunder, Harleys, Indians, Triumphs, hundreds of heavy machines crossing Route 50, heading toward Illy. As the sun peaked up, a long line of headlights like a fire snake appeared on the desert road. The ground shook with the rhythm of metal. Red dust clouded the horizon and townspeople began opening doors, watching silently. They arrived in an endless formation. No horns, no shouting, just steady engines and the smell of gasoline, rubber, wind. Leading was an older biker with an American flag on the back seat, flapping in the cold Nevada wind. Behind were hundreds of bikes, all colors, all types, logos from groups across states, Mojave Riders, Arizona Nomads, Utah Iron Brothers, even some faded Hells Angels flags, all heading to Illy, not hurried, not slow, just certain. Sheriff Harker stood on the police station steps, eyes stunned as the convoy threaded the main road. He grabbed the radio, voice urgent. "Units, we've got a situation, hundreds of them coming in from the west." The dispatcher replied shakily. "Sheriff, they're not armed, they're just riding." Harker frowned, said no more. At the Silver Spur diner, Chloe was wiping the counter, heard the engines approaching, then the windows rattled lightly. She ran outside with a few other locals. From afar, road dust blurred the sunlight. Harleys rolling into town one by one, stopping along the road, the line stretching to the residential edge. A silver-bearded man on a Road King looked at her, nodded hello, eyes kind. She nodded back, throat tight with emotion. Maggie Cole sat inside her house, hearing the engines, hands lightly clutching her coffee cup. Hawk stepped onto the porch, eyes on the main road. He said nothing, just a thin smile. "They came," he said softly. Maggie replied, voice mixed with faith. "You called, and they answered." In the central square, the bikers stopped, turned off engines almost simultaneously. The roar died, leaving strange silence, only wind and cooling metal. They didn't gather, didn't cause trouble. They set up tents in the park, started campfires for coffee, helped locals clear snow from sidewalks. Another group pulled tarps over the leaking elementary school roof. An old lady passed, trembling hello. A young biker quickly bowed in return. Rumors spread fast. They didn't come to fight. They came to protect a widow who was assaulted. Illy people were scared at first, but by noon, fear turned to curiosity, then respect. Those who had been silent in the diner that day now dared say, "That's them. They're here for her." Windows opened. Someone brought hot coffee for the bikers. Kids gathered around the bikes, eyes bright touching shiny tanks. An old biker ruffled a child's hair, smiled. "Don't fear the noise, kid. It's just the sound of freedom." Chloe turned back, saw Sheriff Harker and deputies standing far off, eyes worried. She said softly to Hawk, "They don't know what to do." Hawk smiled faintly. "They've spent years keeping this town scared. Now they're the ones scared." In the afternoon, diners opened later. People started talking to bikers camped around the lake. No one ordered it, but everyone understood. The line between outsiders and Illy people was blurring. Online, photos of hundreds of bikers lining the town were shared. Simple caption, They didn't come to fight. They came to stand. In City Hall, Thorne looked out the window, face pale. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "They're everywhere," Croft called, voice heavy. "Then make them go away." "How?" Thorne asked, desperate. "They're not breaking the law." Croft was silent a moment, then said, "Then we'll make one for them to break." While those in power trembled, searching for control, outside Illy slowly changed. A town that lived on fear now heard a different sound. The idling Harleys, the hoarse laughter of men once called criminals, and warmth spreading from the smallest acts of kindness. As dusk fell, the sky covered in golden smoke, hundreds of bikes reflected campfire light. Maggie sat on her doorstep, looking that way, eyes glistening. Hawk stood behind her, silent. Far off in the cold wind, singing rose among the bikers, deep male voices, slow on an old tune. "The road is long, but it's ours tonight." Illy had never heard harmony like that, and in that moment everyone knew something in this town had truly changed. That evening in the largest house in town, where soft yellow light reflected off polished wood-paneled walls, Evelyn Thorne sat alone in the living room, the TV in front of her replaying the national news. Images from the video appeared. The slap, Maggie's stunned face, the gasps, then the bikers flooding Illy like a black wave. The female anchor spoke gravely. Public outrage continues as hundreds of bikers gather in Ely, Nevada, to support 78-year-old assault victim Martha Cole. Evelyn placed a hand on her chest, breath catching. She had known her husband, Garrison, wasn't clean. She knew he was close to Croft, knew the late nights he came home smelling of whiskey and strange perfume. New envelopes came and went from the office no one dared ask about. But seeing this video, seeing raw brutality, seeing a woman her age humiliated in broad daylight, made every excuse she had told herself collapse. "Oh God," she whispered, tears falling. The door lock clicked. Garrison entered, tie loosened, face red from drink. "You still up?" he asked, voice heavy. Evelyn didn't answer, her eyes glued to the screen, where Croft's logo appeared with the line, "Questions raised about Silver Basin project." He frowned, turned off the TV. "You shouldn't watch that garbage. The media's twisting things." Evelyn looked at her husband, voice trembling but firm. "It's not twisted, Garrison. I saw it. I saw what he did to her, and I know who's behind it." He turned away, poured a drink, forced a smile. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I do," she replied, voice lowering but sharp as a knife. "You sold this town to Croft. You let him buy the sheriff, the land, and your soul." The glass paused in his hand. He spun, eyes darkening. "You better stop right there, Eve." She wasn't afraid. Tears dried on her cheeks, replaced by strange calm. "I stopped a long time ago, Garrison. Tonight I'm starting again." He stared at her a few seconds, then laughed faintly. "You think you can undo this? It's bigger than you, bigger than me." She only replied softly, "Then maybe it needs to fall." When he left, slamming the study door, Evelyn sat back, heart surging. She knew if she stayed silent, she would be part of this guilt. And she knew Croft hadn't just corrupted the town. He had dragged her husband to the bottom. That night, when the house was quiet, she entered Garrison's private office. The room dark, smelling of cigars and old paper. On the walls awards, photos shaking hands with Croft, and a faded wedding frame. She opened the desk drawer, found a key ring. Behind the bookshelf, a landscape painting hung slightly crooked. Evelyn touched the wooden frame, remembering the times he opened it, turning the hidden dial in the wall niche. She breathed deep, then tried. Right 22, left 58, right 11. A soft click made her hold her breath. The small door opened. Inside a safe, desk lamp light hit the gray steel. Inside, she saw a stack of cash, thick envelopes, and a small black USB labeled SB Accounting. She picked it up, heart pounding. On the desk, his laptop was still on, showing the document list. She plugged in the USB, opened the folder. Files appeared. Permit adjustments.xlsx, Croft_contracts.pdf, Sheriff_payments_202, 3.doc. She opened one, heart tightening. It was a list of contributions to the mayor's office, and sheriff, each line with date, amount, signature. Beside many familiar names, Walker Construction, incentive for land acquisition. The slap in the video suddenly meant something else. Not random, not anger, but part of a systematic plan. She leaned back in the chair, feeling the room spin. In her head echoed Croft's voice from an old meeting she had overheard. "People like control, Garrison. Give them a little fear, and they'll call it order." Evelyn suddenly understood it was all just fear. The thing they had sown and grown like a field of sin. She removed the USB, hid it in her coat pocket. Hallway lights flickered as she stepped out, heart racing, fearing he would wake. Passing the bedroom, she heard him snoring softly, peaceful as if never sinned. Evelyn stopped, looked at him a long time. Part of her still loved that man, but the rest had died long ago, died with the town's innocence. Early morning, as Harley engines sounded outside again, she stood by the window, clutching the USB. Down the street, Ely people clearing snow with the bikers, laughter ringing. She saw a strange light in that scene, not the light of fear but of awakening. Evelyn put on her coat, stepped out the door. The guard asked, "Ma'am, where are you headed?" She only replied softly, "To make things right." In her heart, the plan was clear. Find the woman in the video, the one the whole country was protecting, Maggie Cole. She didn't know what they would say, only that if she wanted to save her soul, this was the only chance. The Ely afternoon sank into a thin mist, sunlight piercing low clouds, painting silver streaks on the hillsides. On the southern edge of town, amid sparse pines, stood a small chapel called St. Mary's Chapel, built from gray stone last century. The chapel bell had long ceased ringing, only the wind threading through the belfry creaking like time's breath. Evelyn Thorne drove there, her silver sedan stopping on the narrow dirt road. She sat in the car a few minutes, hands gripping the wheel tightly, feeling as if standing on the line between betrayal and redemption. Outside, yellow leaves fell sporadically on the damp ground. She opened the door, cold wind whipping her cheeks, carrying the scent of pine resin and wet earth. In her coat pocket, the small black USB weighed more than ever, as if holding an entire town's sins. She pushed the chapel door, hinges squeaking. The interior was dim, faint light from stained glass windows falling on wooden pews. In the front row, Maggie Cole sat, small frame, hands clasped in her lap, old shawl over her shoulders. Evelyn stepped lightly, heart pounding wildly, then spoke shakily. "Mrs. Cole." Maggie turned, light reflected in her kind but resolute eyes. "You're Mrs. Thorne," she said, voice calmer than expected. "The mayor's wife." Evelyn stopped midway down the aisle, unable to hide shame. "Yes, and I'm so sorry for what happened to you." Maggie shook her head slightly. "You didn't hit me." "No," Evelyn said, voice choking. "But I've been standing beside the man who let it happen." She approached, sat in the adjacent pew. Between them was long silence, only wind through door cracks. Evelyn pulled out the USB, placed it in her palm, then extended it to Maggie. "Everything's on here," she said softly. "The money, the deals, the bribes. It's enough to bring them all down." Maggie looked at the tiny object, then up, asking gently, "Why are you giving this to me?" Evelyn pressed her lips, eyes welling. "Because you're the only one they can't buy, and because you're not alone anymore." Maggie fell silent. She saw the woman before her, perfectly styled hair, sparkling pearl necklace, now trembling not from fear but courage. She placed her wrinkled hand on Evelyn's, voice deep and warm. "You're a brave woman, Mrs. Thorne." Evelyn shook her head lightly, voice breaking. "No, I'm a coward who waited too long." Maggie looked at her, eyes gentle as if erasing guilt. "Sometimes bravery isn't about being early," she said. "It's about showing up at all." Outside, Hawk's Harley stopped on the dirt road 100 meters away. He leaned against the bike, eyes watching the chapel. Weak sunlight reflected off his visor, making his face like carved stone. He didn't know exactly what was happening inside, only that his mother had chosen to meet the enemy's wife. He kept distance, scanning all directions, hand ready on the handlebars, prepared if anyone appeared. In his mind, every sense was taut like steel wire. He didn't trust authorities, didn't trust apologies, but he trusted his mother, and that was enough to stand here, waiting in silence. Inside, Evelyn sighed, pulled a handkerchief to wipe tears. "When I married Garrison," she said, "he was kind, ambitious. He wanted to help people. But then Croft came, and he started saying things like progress and opportunity. I watched him change, one compromise at a time, and I did nothing." Maggie listened, nodded slightly. "We all close our eyes sometimes," she replied. "But you opened yours before it was too late." Evelyn smiled sadly, then closed Maggie's hand around the USB. "Give this to someone who still remembers what justice looks like." "I can't. They'd silence me before sunset." Maggie nodded, voice firm. "My son will know what to do." Evelyn looked at her, voice lowering. almost whispering. He scares them, you know. Men like Croft and my husband. They understand money and threats, but they don't understand men who fight for something real. Maggie gripped the woman's hand tightly, feeling the trembling turn to resolve. Both sat a while longer, silent, only hearing wind and faint bell rope chimes. When Evelyn stood, Maggie watched quiet admiration rising. At the door, Evelyn paused, turned back. Sometimes courage wears pearls instead of leather. The words echoed in the empty space like a prayer. She opened the door, stepped out, leaving faint perfume and the resonance of courage. Hawk saw her leave the chapel, walking quickly to her car, head slightly bowed. He didn't know details, only that his mother emerged afterward, slower, face calm, but eyes unusually bright. He asked softly, "You okay, Ma?" Maggie took his hand, replied gently, "We're not alone anymore." Hawk nodded, asked no more. As they drove away from St. Mary's Hill, dusk was falling, gilding the dusty road. Wind blew strong, swirling pine needles. In Hawk's heart, something had changed. For the first time, he believed that perhaps the courage of those thought weakest could topple the most powerful. Returning from the chapel, Hawk sat in the garage, yellow light shining on the old military laptop on the table. On the screen, Evelyn's USB was plugged in, files opening in series, payment spreadsheets, bribe invoices, Bassett Lake planning maps, with forged signatures of vanished residents. Maggie stood silently behind him, saying nothing. Hawk opened encryption software, uploaded all data to the biker community's private network called Roadkind, a closed forum where former badge wearers now spent retirement helping the vulnerable. When upload complete appeared, he looked at his mother. "Once this goes live, there's no going back." Maggie replied softly. There was never any going back. Hawk hit enter. In minutes across western states, notifications lit up on thousands of bikers' phones. Illy, Nevada, corruption, justice ride commencing. In Las Vegas, Salt Lake, Phoenix, San Bernardino, Harley and Indian clubs captured the data, shared publicly on social media, tagging press and veteran organizations. Hashtag #AngelsRide for her appeared, exploding in an hour. Phones filmed bikers donning helmets, sticking banners, justice rides on two wheels, engines roaring simultaneously, sound echoing like thunder. From Illy, Hawk heard the first echo through the mountains, a distant Harley growl, then dozens more following. He opened the garage door, wind gusting in, carrying gasoline and dust. Maggie stepped onto the porch, looking to the horizon where moving lights dotted endless Route 50. "They're coming again," she said, voice mixed fear and hope. Hawk nodded. Old leather jacket, shifting on his shoulders. This time they're not coming to stand, they're coming to end it. In central LA, people poured into streets. They heard distant engines, ground rumbling, like a metal storm approaching. When the first convoy appeared, the sun was just rising over the peaks. Over 300 bikers in line entered town, American flags, POW flags, faded Hells Angels, logos flapping in wind. They didn't shout, didn't vandalize, just rode steady, slow and sure, past houses, past the police station, past the square. Engine sounds blended into a thick roar shaking Ellie. Those silent in the diner that day now stood roadside, clapping, some tearing up. An old veteran raised a salute. A biker stopped to return it solemnly. Children on father's shoulders waved small flags. Chloe filmed with her phone, live streaming. In under 10 minutes, millions watched the Angels ride. Comments flooded. This is what real America looks like. Not vengeance, honor. Meanwhile, inside City Hall, Mayor Thorne stood by the window, looking at the sea of people and bikes below, face pale, hands shaking, holding the phone. "We need to do something," he yelled into the receiver. On the other end, Croft roared, "You do nothing. You stay inside. I'm sending a car. We're getting out before this becomes a siege." Parker behind him, voice growling, "You can't outrun this. They've got cameras everywhere. The feds will see that evidence," Croft replied. "Then make it disappear." "It's too late," Parker said, looking out where Hawk was stepping into the street, black Harley at his feet. Croft hung up, smashed the phone in half. Outside, Hawk donned his helmet, inserted the key, engine exploding to life, blending with hundreds more. He rode to the front, Maggie standing before the diner, watching. Chloe's camera caught the moment he raised his right hand. The only signal. Hundreds of bikers throttled up simultaneously. Engine roar rose from the ground like thunder. Along the main street, windows rattled, American flags whipped. Ellie had never witnessed anything like it. A procession of black leather men, silent but powerful, parading not to destroy, but to declare. Justice had arrived. National TV broadcast live. Helicopters filming overhead. Ticker running. Hell's Angels lead justice rally in Nevada corruption scandal. Reporter in the street. Wind tossing hair. What began as a single act of violence against an elderly woman has become a movement sweeping the nation. In the office, Croft threw a suitcase on the desk, barking at aides. Pack the drives. We leave now. Thorne stood frozen, eyes panicked. We can't just abandon everything. Watch me, Croft replied, voice hissing through teeth. Parker looked at both, then walked out, tossing back. You built this town on fear. Don't be surprised it's afraid of you now. Outside, Hawk stopped in the square, removed his helmet, looked up at City Hall. Engines still roared behind, unending. He needed no weapon, just the presence of hundreds sharing one belief. In that moment, Ellie held its breath. Then from the crowd, someone started clapping. Another shouted, "For Maggie." The shout spread fast, blending with engines. Maggie watched her son, tears on cheeks. She whispered, "That's my boy." Upstairs in City Hall, Croft pulled the curtain, looked out. Hundreds below looked up at him, not with anger, but contempt. He felt something unknown, real fear. Somewhere out there, social media exploded with images of bikers in the desert, sunlight reflecting on helmets, and resolute eyes. A reporter wrote, "Ellie, Nevada, where the angels ride," and justice finally found its road. As afternoon fell, engine sounds faded, leaving only wind through town. But all knew, from today, power had changed hands. No longer to those in offices, but to people daring to stand together, on two wheels, and in one belief. The news exploded like a storm. Less than 12 hours after the bikers left the square, all data from Evelyn Thorne's USB was publicized by major papers and national TV. Headlines ran thick. Corruption network exposed in Ely, Nevada. Silver Basin Resort, linked to bribery, extortion, and assault. Hidden camera photos, document copies, money transfer invoices, all before the nation's eyes. Garrison Thorne, Richard Croft, and Sheriff Bill Harker became Nevada's most shameful names overnight. The whole town stayed up, people gathering in diners before TVs following each broadcast. Some cried, others laughed, as if decades of fear lifted from shoulders. Maggie Cole sat in her living room, blue screen light on her face. Hawk stood behind, arms crossed. On TV the anchor read, "The evidence suggests that Silver Basin Resort's developer Richard Croft, in collaboration with Mayor Garrison Thorne and Sheriff Bill Harker, conspired to illegally obtain land around Bassett Lake through intimidation and fraud. Federal agents are en route to Ely." Maggie sighed, voice light as wind. "It's over." Hawk didn't reply, just looked out the window where wind through pines carried fading engine sounds. But in City Hall it wasn't over. Garrison Thorne sat in the dark office, open whiskey bottle on the desk, papers scattered on the floor. Outside, reporters and townspeople grew louder, chanting for justice. He looked out, saw sky brightening, felt his heart pound as if gripped. Phone rang, Croft calling. "They're coming for us, Garrison." His voice hoarse and urgent. "Get in your car. Head north. I've got a plane ready in Elko." "You think we can run from this?" Thorne said. Dry laugh. "You can run. I've already fallen." Croft cursed, hung up. In the silent room, Thorne poured more whiskey, hands trembling. On the desk an old photo, him and Evelyn, wedding day, smiling radiant in spring sun. He lightly touched the glass. "I tried," he whispered, voice choking. "I just wanted to build something," but he knew he had built a kingdom on fear. As morning light slipped through curtains, he opened the drawer, took an old pistol. A shot rang out, rattling the window frames. The crowd outside startled. Some screamed. News spread in minutes. Mayor Garrison Thorne dead in apparent suicide. In her home, Evelyn collapsed, hands over mouth, tears streaming endlessly. At the police station, Sheriff Harker just got the news when the desk phone rang nonstop. He dragged a cigarette, growled. No comment, no statement. A young officer ran in, face pale. "Sir, they're outside." "Who?" "The feds, sir, and the bikers." Harker frowned, stepped onto the porch. The square before the station was packed. Dozens of bikers stood still on the sidewalk, amid FBI vehicles and state police. Townspeople behind, no longer fearful but with strange resolve. A black-suited agent approached, pulled an arrest warrant. "Bill Harker, You are under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and multiple violations of federal law." Harker smirked, tossed the cigarette down the steps. "You've got no jurisdiction here." "We do now," the agent replied. Signaling, 2 state troopers advanced, cuffed him. Harker struggled, yelling, "You think this changes anything? You think they'll thank you for it?" But no one answered. As he was pushed into the car, the surrounding crowd was silent. Then one clapped, a second, a third, until the square erupted in cheers. Chloe stood beside Maggie, tears falling, said softly, "He's gone." Maggie replied, "So is his fear." On the northern highway, Croft's black SUV sped madly, tires gripping the road. He sweated, hands shaking, calling the pilot, "Get the jet ready. We're wheels up in 10. The pilot replied, "Roger that, sir." Croft glanced in the rearview, saw no pursuit. He turned on the radio, anchor's voice. "Breaking news, Mayor Thorne confirmed dead. Sheriff Harker in custody. Richard Croft remains at large." He cursed, shut it off, floored it. Wind whistled through the glass. But at Elko Airport, he sensed something wrong. The runway access road was blocked, a line of black vehicles across the entrance. FBI, state police, and leading were Harleys in formation. Bikers stood on both sides, arms crossed, eyes cold. In the middle, a black helmeted man in faded leather stood beside the familiar black Harley. Croft braked hard, car skidding, stopping meters away. He looked through the windshield, met Hawk Cole's eyes. Hawk didn't move, didn't speak. Croft opened the door, raised hands, trying calm. "Listen, we can talk," he said loudly, voice slightly shaking. "This isn't what you think. I was just..." An agent stepped up, reading loudly. "Richard Croft, you're under arrest for racketeering, fraud, and criminal conspiracy." He smiled weakly, hands up in surrender. As cuffed, he looked back at Hawk, shouted, "You think you're better than me? You're just another outlaw." Hawk didn't reply. He just stood, silent, eyes toward the horizon where afternoon sun began reddening Elko's sky. FBI helicopter sounded overhead, wind kicking up road dust around the wheels. Croft was led away, head bowed low. A nearby biker looked at Hawk, asked softly, "You want to see him off?" Hawk shook his head. "No need. The road took care of it." As the convict convoy left, those around stood quiet. No cheers, no wild celebration. Just the calm of a town reclaiming its soul. In Ellie, the sun set behind the Shell Creek Range, shining through rooftops. Maggie sat by the window, last light flooding the pane, hands trembling holding her tea. Hawk entered, placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's done," he said. Maggie looked up, smiled lightly. "I know." Outside, Chloe with locals removed. For sale signs from homes around Bassett Lake. A child ran by, shouting, "They're gone," and laughter spread like waves. That night, Ellie was unusually quiet. No police sirens, no threats, only wind and faint smoke from reopened diners. Hawk sat alone on the porch, watching stars twinkle. Maggie came out, sat beside, asked softly, "What happens now?" He thought a moment, then replied, "We rebuild." The answer simple, but holding everything. Ellie had been a kingdom of fear, built on lies and greed, but now its kings had fallen. Hawk looked at the sky, eyes reflecting stars. He felt no triumph, only peace, the rare feeling he had sought lifelong on long roads. Somewhere in the night, a dog barked, then fell silent. Wind gently blew across the wooden porch, carrying the scent of freedom. In the days after Croft's arrest and Ellie's name flooded national news, the small town gradually revived, as if unshackled from an invisible yoke. Fear which had once seeped into every home, every glance, now vanished, leaving a strange emptiness the people weren't yet used to filling. The first morning without Sheriff Harker or his lackeys patrolling, residents stepped into the street hesitantly, then smiled and greeted each other, as if relearning how to live. On the main road, the Silver Spur diner sign was replaced with a new one, Angel's Haven Diner, hand-painted white letters, with a smaller line below, home of kindness and good coffee. Chloe Vance, in a new apron, stood amid the crowded diner, eyes shining with pride and emotion. A month ago she was just a waitress. Now the management company appointed her manager. After learning she was the first to stand against evil, they sent a thank you letter, calling her the heart of Ellie. When reopening, customers packed the place, many bikers hauling tables and chairs from trucks to set up on the porch. Maggie Cole sat at her usual table, where the incident happened, now with new wood. Everyone passing stopped to greet her, young people shaking her hand, calling her by the town's new name, Grandma of the Angels. She just smiled kindly, eyes still glowing with peaceful faith. Hawk sat in the corner, quietly drinking coffee. Old leather jacket hung on the chair back. He didn't like attention, but everyone knew without him, Ellie would never have been freed. One morning, the door opened, the air suddenly tensing. Cade Walker walked in. He was thinner, beard grown long, face gaunt, as if aged a decade. The diner fell silent, only cutlery clinking. He walked slowly to Maggie's table, removed his hat, voice hoarse. "Mrs. Cole, I don't expect forgiveness." Maggie looked up, eyes calm. "What do you expect, Mr. Walker?" Cade bowed his head, hands clenched. "A chance to make things right. I told the feds everything I knew about Croft. They cut me loose with probation. I don't deserve that, but I'm gonna use it, starting now." He looked around the diner, eyes stopping at Chloe, then back to Maggie. "My company's still standing. I'll fix every house, every fence, every wall that our men broke, free of charge. You have my word." For a long moment no one spoke. Then Hawk set down his coffee cup, voice low. "Words are easy." Cade nodded. "That's why I'll start today." He turned, left the diner. When the door chime faded, Chloe exhaled, and Maggie just looked at Hawk, saying softly, "Maybe redemption starts with guilt." That afternoon, a Walker construction truck stopped at the street's end. Cade and two young workers began repainting house walls, patching leaky roofs, fixing fences around the lake. No one told him to. No one hired him. But every hammer strike, every paint stroke was an apology more concrete than words. Gradually, residents came to help, bringing water, food. Bikers joined, some fixing roofs, some replacing rotted poles, some hauling lumber from outside. In weeks, Ellie buzzed like a festival. The only sounds were laughter, hammers, and engines starting to haul materials. Children ran around, playing among bikers, sticking wing stickers on their helmets. Maggie became the center, cooking for workers, baking apple pies, telling kids and bikers stories of Ellie's mining days. Every evening, locals and bikers gathered in the park, lit fires, drank coffee, sang old songs. Chloe said, people from Salt Lake, Reno, even California sent donations to help the town revive. The press called it the rebuilding of Ellie, but locals simply called it the return of peace. Hawk went everywhere with Cade, overseeing work. For the first time in years, he didn't feel out of place. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped toward Bassett Lake, reflecting gold on the water, Cade approached, wiping sweat. "You think this is enough to make up for it?" Hawk looked at him. No smile. "Nothing ever makes up for what's lost, but you can make sure it never happens again." Cade nodded, silently continued. Maggie stood on the porch steps, watching the two men repair a wall together, warmth rising in her heart. A shattered town was healing itself, not by government or courts, but by hands and remorse. When night fell, hundreds of bikers stayed, camping around the lake. Generators hummed, yellow lights cast into the sky. One man in the group said, "We'll stay till every nail's in place." And they did. For 2 weeks, Ellie was full of saws, laughter, food smells, and friendly greetings. No one called them outlaws anymore. Locals called them brothers. When the work finished, Cade entered the diner, looked at Maggie, said softly, "Thank you for letting me try." She replied, kind smile, "Thank you for not quitting halfway." That evening, Chloe hung a new photo on the wall. Maggie among the bikers, Bassett Lake behind, handwritten words. Some angels wear leather. Ellie, after years of fear, had learned justice comes, not just from law but from humanity. And in the diner's dim yellow light, Hawk sat quietly, hearing wind through the door, seeing his mother's eyes sparkle with pride he never dared hope for. A month later, Ely was transformed, the main road spotless, for sale signs gone, replaced by small American flags in the wind, broken walls repainted, fences straight. Angel's Haven Diner lit until late. The press began calling it the town saved by bikers. A major magazine ran the Angels of Ely with a photo of Maggie Cole among Harleys, wind-tossing silver hair, kind smile and eyes bright as if seeing beyond the horizon. The article spoke of a widow's courage against fear and wingless angels who came to restore faith to a forgotten town. Tourists started arriving, not for Bassett Lake or Shell Creek photos, but to see where the miracle happened. At the town entrance, locals erected a large wooden sign, white painted letters, "Welcome to Ely, Nevada, where kindness rides." Below were biker signatures from everywhere, and smaller, in honor of Grandma of the Angels. The town became a symbol of unity. Those once silent now proudly recounted what they witnessed, as if Ely was the first chapter of a new story everyone shared. Chloe said every morning the diner was packed. Tourists, locals, bikers stopping for coffee, leaving tips with notes, "Ride safe, be kind." Cade Walker, now in work clothes, still served the community, no longer hiding. Late afternoons he set down his hammer, sat on the porch, drank coffee, watched the lake reflect sunset. Once he told Hawk, "Funny thing is, fixing things is harder than breaking them, but it feels better." Hawk just smiled, nodded. Both understood redemption by actions, not words. On the town's edge, in the old garage, Hawk sat alone, weak neon casting dim light on tool-hung walls, his black Harley in the center, polished, ready for the next ride. He was changing oil, simple but strangely peaceful work. A small radio played the local station, female announcer's voice. "It's been 4 weeks since the now famous Angels of Ely rode into town. Reconstruction continues, and thanks to the bravery of Martha Cole, Ely stands as a symbol of kindness and resilience. Locals now call her Grandma of the Angels. Sources say the bikers plan to return every year to celebrate the spirit of brotherhood that saved this place." Hawk paused, looked into space. He heard wind through the door, mixed with oil and metal smells, feeling strange peace. The radio continued, voice slow. "In a world where fear often speaks louder than compassion, one small town proved that courage and kindness still have a voice. Maybe, just maybe, that voice sounds a little like the roar of a Harley." He chuckled softly, a rare, genuine laugh. Maggie entered, holding 2 coffee cups, handed him one. "They're talking about you again," she said, half proud, half teasing. "No," Hawk replied, taking the cup, looking down. "They're talking about you." She smiled, sat on the wooden bench beside. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "You did what you always do, Ma. You stood your ground. I just didn't want to be afraid anymore," she replied softly, eyes distant. They sat quietly, listening to the radio. Then Maggie spoke. "Will you stay this time?" Hawk looked at her, then the bike. He didn't answer immediately. Finally, slowly, "The road's still calling, but I'll come back." She smiled, asked no more, just placed her hand on his. Outside, the sky turned amber. Last rays reflected on the Harley's black paint, glowing like burning metal. Hawk turned up the radio, hearing the broadcast's end. "The Angels may ride away, but what they left behind will keep riding in every heart that remembers." He leaned back, closed his eyes, lips curving into a smile. For the first time in years, Hawk Cole felt truly at peace. No cigarette smoke, no noise, just coffee steam, oil scent, and the gentle sound of the Harley cooling in silence. On the wall before him was an old photo. Maggie, Chloe, Cade and the bikers, all before the diner with the sign, Angels Haven Diner. He looked at it, sighed, whispered to himself, "Not all legends ride fast, some stay, just to make the world right again." That afternoon, Ely basked in late-day sunlight, golden and vast. The western sky blazed with endless orange-red streaks, spilling onto Bassett Lake, sparkling like a mirror reflecting heaven's fire. Desert wind blew through quiet Route 50, swirling dust in soft rings like smoke. The small town seemed to hold its breath, as if knowing something memorable was about to happen. In the center, before Angels Haven Diner, hundreds of bikers prepared for the final ride. Harleys lined up, helmets on mirrors, faded leather jackets bearing logos from Western clubs. They spoke softly, shook hands, patted shoulders like soldiers, after a battle won not by violence but by hearts. Chloe passed out coffee, radiant smile, eyes still misty. Cade Walker stood nearby, hands paint-stained, shaking each biker's hand, repeating, "Thank you for letting me help." No one replied, but each nodded, a nod of quiet forgiveness. Maggie Cole stood on the diner steps, cream sweater, silver hair glowing in sunset. She looked at the convoy, then her son tying luggage to the Harley saddle. Hawk turned, faint smile on his tanned face. "You sure you don't want to come with us, Ma?" he asked, voice rough from wind. Maggie shook her head, kind smile. "My road's right here, son. Yours is still out there." Hawk nodded, eyes softening. He stepped over, hugged her. Her warmth reminded him of old mornings, when he was a rebellious kid always worrying her. "You made me proud, Hawk," she said, voice trembling slightly. "I always was, Ma," he replied. squeezing her shoulders gently. A moment later, he stepped back, donned his helmet, mounted the bike. Chloe came to the door, waved. "Take care, Hawk. Come back soon." He smiled. "Count on it." The first engine started, then hundreds followed, no longer the roar of a rival, but low, steady, like a giant beast's heartbeat departing. They turned onto the main road, tires crunching old asphalt, sunset reflecting on metal making the convoy look like a river of fire flowing through the desert. Townspeople lined both sides, waving, some holding hastily painted "Thank You Angels" signs. A boy on his father's shoulders shouted, "Ride safe." Laughter answered. Then engines drowned all. Maggie watched until the convoy faded at the horizon, only distant echo remaining. She stood there, hand clutching her shawl. When the engine sound dissolved into wind, Ully returned to quiet. But this quiet was different, no longer heavy, but full of peace. Chloe stepped out, stood beside Maggie, both looking west where the sky burned red. "Do you think they'll come back next year?" Chloe asked. Maggie smiled, eyes not leaving the horizon. "They always do. Maybe not the same ones, but there will always be angels on the road." Far away, Hawk led the pack, wind slapping his face, dust swirling. He felt tires rolling on hot pavement, heard wind blend with engines, his heartbeat sync with the machines. Beside him, brothers nodded, eyes forward. Route 50 stretched endless, a lonely road, but today it glowed with setting sun and kindness left behind. Hawk smiled faintly, eyes half closed in the wind, not from pride, but finally feeling he was where he belonged. His mother's voice echoed in his head, like a blessing on the wind. "Not all angels have wings. Some wear leather, and they ride for those who can't." He throttled up, the Harley roaring louder, blending into the chorus of hundreds behind. The line sped through red desert, along America's loneliest road, leaving long light trails like marks of justice and humanity. As night began to fall, a starry sky opened above, reflecting on polished black tanks. From afar, Ely was just a thin golden strip, but in the hearts of those who passed through, it would forever be where an old widow, a forgotten town, and misunderstood bikers taught the world that kindness can still roar. Low guitar music rose somewhere in the wind, long, sad but warm notes. An imaginary camera panned up high, looking down on the endless convoy, headlights like a shooting star trail. A narrator's voice, soft, warm, sure. If this story touched your heart, share it. Because sometimes the road to justice starts with one act of kindness. The last light faded behind the Shell Creek Range, only engine sounds blending with desert wind. Then everything faded out. If you believe kindness can still roar amid engines, hit subscribe to join us on the journeys of the angels. See you on the next road, where justice and humanity still have room to bloom.